Hi guys, it's Ms.Autry here, and I'm going to go through more fractions and decimal conversions with you. I'm going to be doing the odd numbers on this worksheet, and then you're going to go back and do the even numbers. So I'm going to be doing first number 1. It says rename each fraction as a decimal. So today in class we had a couple different ways that we decided. We could either simplify the fraction first and then use our proportion. We could use long division, or we can set up another proportion if that denominator goes to 100. So I already know that 50 can go to 100, so I'm going to use just the regular proportion. I know I don't have to simplify first. So 50 times what makes 100? 2. So I'm going to multiply it by 2. So 17 times 2 is 34. And we know that 34 hundredths is written as 0.34. Okay, and remember that we made an equivalent fraction that is a number out of 100 here because we know that we can write hundredths as decimals. So now I'm going to do number 2. Oh, actually, no, I'm not because you're doing the evens. I'm going to do number 3. Now, I don't really like this number, so I'm going to go ahead and let's change this. Let's change this top number to 35. Okay, so go ahead and change that on your paper. We're going to do 35 over 500. And I'm sorry that it keeps refocusing. So this is one that I can simplify 500 to get to 100. And what can we divide 500 by to get to 100? We can divide it by 5. Now, if we divide the bottom by 5, we're going to divide the top by 5. And 35 divided by 5 is 7. And 7 hundredths, we got to put the 7 in the hundredths place. So 0.07. All right, now remember that the numerator goes behind the decimal, and the denominator determines where we're going to put it in the place value. So I put that 7 in the hundredths place. Up here we had 34 hundredths. So this number just went directly behind the decimal because we have 3 tenths. Because that's 30 hundredths, and then we have 4 hundredths. That makes 34 hundredths. All right, so let's try another one. 7 out of 25. Because we're doing the odds. So remember that 4 quarters make $1. So we have 25 cents, and we want 100 cents. We're going to multiply it by 4. And 7 times 4 makes 28. So remember, whatever you do to the denominator, you're going to do to the numerator. And now we have 78 hundredths, and we write 0.78. All right, now we're going to write each of our decimals as a fraction. I'm going to start with number 7 because I'm doing the odds. 0.64. Now we can also read that as 0.64 hundredths. So that's going to determine the denominator. So denominator is 100, and the number behind the decimal is our numerator. Okay, now we're going to divide both of these by 2, because remember it says simplest form, so we got to simplify. So we're going to divide the numerator by 2 and the denominator by 2. I did that because they're both even numbers. And 2 goes into 6 3 times, and then 2 goes into 4 2 times, and now we have 32 out of 50. And I know again that they're both even, so I'm going to divide it by 2. And 32 divided by 2 is 16. And 50 divided by 2, you have 50 cents, and you cut yourself in half, you're going to only have 25 cents. Now I know that I have simplified all the way because these two numbers don't have a factor in common. So I'm done. 16 out of 25. So here's my original fraction. And now here's my new simplified fraction. All right, number 9. Oh, this one's pretty easy. We got 5. This is in the tenths place. So our denominator this time is going to be 10. And our numerator is going to be 5. The only number I can divide both of these by is 5. So when I divide them by 5, we get a half. And another way to think about this is having 5 dimes because it's in the tenths place. If you have 5 dimes, you have 50 cents. So how much of $1 do you have? You have half $1. Okay, number 11. once again, we're in the tens place. So our denominator this time will be 10, and our numerator is going to be the number behind the decimal, and that's 8. And this time we can divide by 2 because they're both even numbers. And 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So now we've practiced some converting fractions into decimals using our proportion. There weren't any up here that we had to simplify before we did our 100, so that was nice. And then we have some here that we did from decimals into fractions. So now I'm going to do 2 word problems with you. Okay. So number 13. 7 out of 100 people surveyed have been involved in an automobile accident. Find the equivalent decimal. Okay, so first I need to write this as a fraction, because I can write 7 out of 100. There were 7 people out of 100. So the numerator is 7 and the denominator is 100. 7 people were in an accident and 100 people were surveyed. Now, how do we write 7 hundredths? Well, we wrote it up here. How did we write 7 hundredths? 0.07. So that is equal to 0.07, because they wanted the decimal. All right, number 15. Write the decimal and fraction in simplest form to represent the shaded portion of the model. Well, first of all, in order to figure out how much is shaded, we first need to figure out how much is in total there. So we're going to count how many pieces of pie or pizza this looks like. And I'm going to start with this dark one here. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my total is 8. So that determines my denominator of my fraction. And then my numerator is how many are shaded, because it asks me to represent the shaded portion of the model. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are shaded. Oh no, I got 5/8. And that was one of those ones that we talked about in class today that we're going to have to use either long division or try to memorize our 1/8 and go from there. So if you remember that 1/8 is 0.125, and we have 5 of them, we can add this 5 times. So I'm going to add 0.125 5 times. And I'm going to run out of space here, so I think I'm going to have to use the back. So I'm adding 0.125. Give it a second. When I flipped the paper over, the camera got confused. So I'm going to be adding 0.125 5 times because we're looking for 5/8 in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we know that 1/8 is 0.125. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to add it 5 times. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I have the decimal 0.625. But however, we also talked about long division. So remember that 5/8. The numerator goes inside, the denominator goes outside. Okay? So we ask ourselves, how many 8s are in 5? Well, there's none, because we know we're supposed to be getting a decimal. So we add the decimal point, and I'm going to add 2 zeros, because I've already decided here I'm probably going to need more. So now I ask myself, does 8 go into 50? And yes, it does. It goes in 6 times. So we're going to subtract 48 because 8 times 6 is 48. 50 minus 48 is 2. Now we bring down our 0. 8 goes into 20 2 times. And 8 times 2 is 16. So we subtract that. We're left with 4. I'm not done yet, but I need to add another 0. When I don't have any more numbers and I'm not done, I had to add a 0 and bring it down. 8 goes into 40 5 times. And 8 times 5 is 40. So I'm just going to subtract the 40. Now see how we got the same answer? 0.625. So 5/8 is 0.625. So we're going to flip the paper back over, and hopefully the document camera is not going to mess me up this time. And 5/8 is 0.625. Okay. Number 17. We actually had 3 word problems. The highway patrol uses radar. The radar shows that 0.125 of the cars on the highway break the speed limit. Find the fraction in simplest form equivalent to represent the cars breaking the limit. Okay, now we have 3 place values. So if this is the hundredths, this is the tenths, then the hundredths, and then this is the thousands. So we can write this as 125 over 1,000. And as you can see, we've already talked about that 1/8 equals 0.125. So when we divide, we should get 1/8. So we're going to start with dividing by 25. And 125 divided by 25 is 5. And 1,000 goes into 25 40 times. Trust me on that one. And then they both end in 5 or 0. So we can divide by 5. And we get our 1/8. And if we want to double check, I knew that 25 times 4 made 100, so all I had to do was add a 0 here. That's how I got that 40. 40 times 25 makes 1,000. So now that you've practiced with me your fractions and decimal conversions, I want you to go back and do the odd numbers. I'm sorry, we did the odd numbers. You're going to go back and do the even numbers by yourself. And we'll check them in class tomorrow. Have a good night.